Elara lived by the stars. Not in the astrological sense, though she found the ancient tales of celestial bodies fascinating, but in the most literal, breathtaking way. Her small cottage, perched on the gentle slope of Starhaven's highest hill, boasted a custom-built observatory dome, its retractable roof a nightly gateway to the cosmos. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of apricot and amethyst, Elara would prepare. Her telescope, a gleaming testament to her lifelong passion, stood ready. She was an astronomer, not of the distant academic sort, but a local curator of wonder, who ran the town's small, beloved planetarium and taught stargazing classes to anyone who possessed even a flicker of curiosity. Starhaven itself was a testament to the night sky. Tucked away in a valley far from city lights, its ordinances fiercely protected its pristine dark skies. Streetlights glowed a soft amber hue, pointing downwards to minimize light pollution, and every resident understood the sacred privilege of living beneath such an unmarred tapestry of stars. It was a quiet town, filled with gentle souls who appreciated the rhythm of nature, the changing seasons, and the profound silence of a starlit night. Elara, with her wispy auburn hair that often escaped its braid and eyes the color of a twilight sky, fit perfectly into this world. She moved with a quiet grace, her mind often drifting amongst nebulae and constellations. Her days were filled with the practicalities of maintaining the planetarium's projectors and curating its exhibits, ancient star charts, meteor fragments, and stunning astrophotography. Her evenings, however, belonged to the universe. Tonight was no exception. A crisp autumn chill had settled over Starhaven, promising a clear, moonless night, perfect for deep sky observation. Elara bundled herself in a thick wool sweater, poured a mug of chamomile tea, and ascended the spiral staircase to her observatory. With a soft whir, the dome retracted, revealing an expanse of velvet black, already studded with the first pinpricks of light. Orion was beginning his slow ascent, his belt jewels sparkling with fierce intensity. Elara settled into her chair, her eye pressed to the eyepiece. She wasn't just observing, she was communing. Each star, each galaxy, whispered stories of creation, of infinite possibility. It was here in the quiet solitude of her observatory that Elara felt most herself, most connected to something vast and eternal. She charted, she sketched, she simply gazed, letting the cosmic grandeur wash over her. But lately a subtle shift had begun in Starhaven, a ripple on the placid surface of her peaceful routine. A new resident was moving into the old Miller place, a charming but slightly dilapidated farmhouse on the edge of town, known for its sprawling garden and breathtaking views of the valley. Newcomers were rare in Starhaven. Most residents were born and bred there or had arrived years ago, drawn by the town's unique allure. This new arrival, a man named Liam Thorne, had generated a quiet buzz of curiosity. Elara had heard snippets from Mrs. Gable at the bakery. "He's an artist, dear. A painter, I hear." And from Mr. Henderson at the hardware store, "Bought a surprising amount of lumber. Seems he's quite handy." The general consensus was positive, if a little mystified. An artist? In Starhaven? It wasn't unheard of, but most creative types gravitated towards the bustling coastal towns. What would draw him to the quietude and dark skies of their little haven? She tried to push the thoughts aside, refocusing on the Andromeda galaxy, a hazy smudge of light promising billions of worlds. Yet, the idea of a new presence, a new energy, in their small, close-knit community lingered, a faint, unfamiliar star in her well-mapped sky. The following morning, Elara found herself unconsciously taking a detour on her walk to the planetarium. Her usual route wound through the town square, but today her feet led her down the winding lane towards the Miller place. She told herself she was just admiring the autumn foliage, but a flutter of anticipation, a novel sensation, stirred within her. The Miller house, usually somber and quiet, was now alive with activity. A pickup truck was parked in the driveway, its bed laden with an assortment of tools and what looked like a stack of canvas stretchers. A figure was moving inside, a tall man with dark, unruly hair visible through an open window. He was wrestling with what looked like a heavy piece of furniture, his movements strong and purposeful. Elara quickly averted her gaze, feeling a blush creep up her neck. She wasn't one to gawk. But as she hurried past, a sound caught her attention, a faint, melodic whistling. It was a tune she recognized, an old folk song her grandmother used to sing. A small, unexpected spark of warmth ignited within her. She arrived at the planetarium, its domed roof gleaming under the morning sun, feeling a little less grounded than usual. All day, as she cleaned the exhibit cases and prepared for her evening class on lunar phases, the image of the new resident, his silhouette framed by the window, his whistled tune, replayed in her mind. Later that afternoon, a delivery truck pulled up to the planetarium. It was a new set of educational posters Alara had ordered, depicting various celestial phenomena. As the driver unloaded the heavy boxes, a car pulled up beside the truck, a sleek, dark sedan. The driver, a man, emerged, looking somewhat lost. He was taller than Alara had imagined from her fleeting glimpse. His dark hair had a natural wave, falling just over his forehead, and his eyes, when they met hers, were a surprising shade of warm hazel, flecked with gold. He had a kind face, a gentle curve to his lips, and a faint stubble that softened his jawline. "Excuse me," he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. "I seem to be a bit turned around. Is this the Starhaven Observatory?" Alara blinked, a smile touching her lips. "This is the Starhaven Planetarium," she corrected softly. "The observatory is up on Miller's Hill, my private one. But if you're looking for stargazing, you've come to the right place." He chuckled, a genuine, easy sound. "My apologies. I'm Liam Thorne. I just moved into the old Miller place." He extended a hand and Alara found hers enveloped in a warmth that lingered even after they parted. His grip was firm but gentle. "Alara Vance," she replied, feeling a familiar shyness, yet drawn to his open demeanor. "Welcome to Starhaven, Liam." "Thank you. It's even more beautiful than I imagined." He gestured vaguely at the surrounding hills, then back at the planetarium. "I heard about the dark skies here. That's actually part of why I chose Starhaven." Alara's eyes lit up. "Oh, are you an amateur astronomer?" Liam smiled, a slight flush rising on his cheeks. "Not exactly, I'm a painter. And lately I've been trying to capture the night sky. The light pollution where I used to live made it impossible to truly see anything. I was hoping to find some inspiration here." A painter of the night sky. Alara's heart did a little leap. This was far more interesting than she'd anticipated. "That's wonderful. We have some of the clearest skies in the country. You'll find no shortage of inspiration." "So I've heard," he said, his gaze sweeping over the planetarium. "This place looks fascinating. Do you run it?" "I do," Alara confirmed, feeling a swell of pride. "I curate the exhibits and teach the public classes. We have one tonight actually on the phases of the moon. You're welcome to join, if you're not too busy unpacking." Liam's eyes brightened. "I'd like that very much, Alara. Thank you. What time?" 7 o'clock? And it's free for new residents, a welcome gesture from the town council. She felt a genuine pleasure in inviting him, a novel excitement at the prospect of sharing her passion with someone new, someone who seemed to already appreciate the very thing she loved most. "I'll be there," Liam promised, a warm smile gracing his lips. "And thank you, again, for the directions." He gave a small wave and climbed back into his car, driving off in the direction Alara had pointed him. Alara watched him go, a peculiar lightness in her chest. She had a feeling that Liam Thorne was going to be a very pleasant addition to Starhaven. And perhaps, to her own quiet, starlit world. The planetarium's main dome was always a source of quiet magic for Alara. Tonight, as the soft ethereal glow of a projected crescent moon filled the space, she felt an extra spark of anticipation. Her class was small, mostly familiar faces, Mrs. Gable, Mr. Henderson, a few local teenagers. And there in the back row, sat Liam, his dark hair catching the subtle light, his gaze fixed intently on the dome. Alara began her lecture, her voice soft but clear, explaining the subtle dance between earth, moon, and sun, the ancient myths intertwined with scientific fact. She spoke of the moon's serene beauty, its profound influence on tides and human imagination. As she moved between constellations and projected images, she occasionally met Liam's gaze. He wasn't just politely listening, he was genuinely engaged, a thoughtful expression on his face, sometimes sketching quickly in a small notebook he held. After the lecture, as the small group lingered, asking questions, Liam approached her. That was truly captivating, Alara, he said, his voice sincere. I never thought about the moon quite like that. The way you blend the science with the poetry of it all, it's beautiful. Thank you, Liam, she replied, a blush warming her cheeks. It's a topic I never tire of. I can see why. I particularly liked your explanation of the harvest moon. It gave me an idea for a painting. He flipped open his notebook, showing her a quick impressionistic sketch, a silhouette of trees, a huge golden moon, and a faint, almost imperceptible hint of a human figure gazing upwards. Alara gasped softly. That's lovely, Liam. You've captured its essence perfectly, even in a sketch. You inspire it, he said, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment, the bustling planetarium faded away. There was an honesty in his gaze that made her feel seen, truly seen, for perhaps the first time in a long while. Do you ever paint directly from observation? She asked, suddenly curious about his process. Whenever I can, he replied. But the night sky is notoriously difficult. The light shifts, the colors are so subtle, and capturing that sense of vastness, it's a challenge. Perhaps I could help, Alara offered, the words tumbling out before she could properly think them through. My observatory is up on Miller's Hill, just past your place. It has a retractable roof, excellent for viewing. And I have star charts equipment. If you ever wanted to try sketching or painting up there. Liam's eyes widened, a genuine surprise flickering across his face. You'd really do that? Let me use your observatory? Of course, Alara said, a confident smile blooming. It's my greatest joy to share the stars, and I'm fascinated by your artistic interpretation of them. That would be incredible, Alara. Truly, thank you. He looked genuinely touched, almost a little overwhelmed. I'd love to take you up on that sometime. Any clear night, she said, feeling a lightness that was entirely new. Just let me know. They exchanged phone numbers, a small modern gesture that felt surprisingly significant in their quiet town. As Liam left, waving goodbye, Alara felt a quiet hum of excitement. It wasn't just the promise of new friendship, or the shared passion for the night sky, but something more. A sense of a door opening, a new constellation appearing in her personal universe. The next few days were a blur of activity for Liam as he settled into his new home. Alara too was busy with her planetarium duties, but she found her thoughts drifting to him more often than not. She'd catch herself looking towards Miller's Hill, wondering if he was sketching, or if he'd found a particularly inspiring view. One evening, as dusk was settling, Alara received a text message. It was from Liam. Clear skies tonight. Any chance you're free to guide a novice sky painter? Deny. A smile spread across Alara's face. She typed back immediately. Absolutely. Come around 8. Bring your sketchbook. When Charlie. She rushed through her dinner, a simple salad, and then began her usual preparations for the observatory. But tonight, there was an added layer of excitement. She tidied her charts, made sure the telescope was perfectly aligned, and even brewed a fresh pot of herbal tea. At precisely 8 o'clock, a knock sounded at her door. Liam stood on her porch, a sturdy canvas bag slung over his shoulder. He wore a warm, dark jacket, and his hair was slightly wind-tousled. Hey, he said, a shy smile playing on his lips. Hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, Alara replied, her voice soft. Come in, the observatory's just up here. He followed her up the spiral staircase, his eyes wide with admiration as he took in the intricate mechanics of the dome. When Alara pressed the button, and the roof silently retracted, revealing the breathtaking expanse of stars, Liam let out a soft gasp. Wow, he breathed, stepping forward, his head tilted back. It's even more incredible up close. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Billions of stars glittered above them, a diamond dust scattered across black velvet. The Milky Way stretched across the zenith, a ghostly river of light. It truly is, Alara agreed, a familiar sense of peace settling over her. Tonight is exceptionally clear. Where do I even begin? Liam murmured, pulling out his sketchbook and a charcoal pencil. He looked overwhelmed, but in a delighted way. Wherever your eye takes you, Alara suggested gently. Sometimes it helps to pick a smaller section, or just let the feeling of it guide your hand. She moved to her telescope, adjusting it slightly. Would you like to look at something specific? I can find anything you wish. Liam tore his gaze from the sky, turning to her. What's your favorite? Elara considered this. It changes, but if I had to pick tonight, perhaps the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. They're a beautiful open cluster, very young stars, still shrouded in the remnants of their birth nebula. She guided the telescope, her movements practiced and fluid. Here, she said, stepping aside. Liam bent to the eyepiece, and another soft gasp escaped him. They're like jewels, he whispered, tiny, shimmering diamonds. And that faint mist around them. I can actually see it. He spent a long moment gazing, then straightened up, his eyes shining. That's it, he declared, turning back to his sketchbook. He began to draw, his charcoal moving with surprising speed and confidence, translating the delicate cluster onto paper. Elara watched him work, fascinated. He wasn't trying to replicate it perfectly. He was capturing the jai-e feeling of the Pleiades, the way they seemed to float, ethereal and incandescent. His strokes were loose, expressive, full of emotion. For a while they worked in comfortable silence, Elara occasionally pointing out a shooting star or a distant galaxy through the telescope, Liam sketching, occasionally pausing to simply absorb the vastness above. You know, Liam said finally, leaning back against the railing, his sketchbook resting on his lap. I always thought of the night sky as a dark, empty canvas. But you see it as full of life, full of light, even in its darkest corners? Because it is, Elara replied softly, turning to face him. Every point of light is a sun, perhaps with planets orbiting it, entire worlds, and the darkness between them isn't empty. It's filled with cosmic dust, with nebulae where new stars are born, with the echoes of ancient explosions. It's a teeming, vibrant universe. He looked at her, his hazel eyes reflecting the starlight, a thoughtful expression on his face. You make it sound alive. It is, she insisted, her passion evident in her voice. And we are a part of it, made of stardust, connected to everything. Liam smiled, a slow, genuine smile that made Elara's heart do a little flip. I think I'm starting to see that, thanks to you. He gestured around the observatory. This place, it's truly magical, Elara. And you're its perfect guardian. A warmth spread through Elara, a feeling more comforting than her chamomile tea. It was rare for someone to truly understand, to connect with her passion on such a deep level. Liam wasn't just admiring the view, he was feeling it, experiencing it with a sensitivity that mirrored her own. They talked for hours, long after Liam had filled several pages of his sketchbook. They spoke of art and science, of the beauty of the natural world, of their shared love for the quiet moments in life. Liam told her about his journey to Starhaven, how he'd felt a deep longing for a place where he could truly see the stars, a place where the noise of the city couldn't drown out the quiet whispers of inspiration. Elara shared her childhood fascination with constellations, how her grandmother had first introduced her to the wonders above, sparking a lifelong quest for knowledge and understanding. As the night wore on, the air grew colder, but neither of them seemed to notice. The stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to their burgeoning connection. Liam had a way of listening that made Elara feel completely at ease, completely heard. He asked insightful questions, his genuine curiosity a balm to her sometimes solitary soul. Finally, as the first hint of pre-dawn light began to paint the eastern horizon, hinting at the approaching sunrise, Liam stretched, a soft sigh escaping him. I should probably head back, he said, regret in his voice. I have a feeling I could stay here all night. You practically did, Elara chuckled, feeling a pang of reluctance at his departure. He packed his sketchbook, carefully tucking away the pages filled with starlight. Thank you, Elara, truly. This has been an unforgettable night. The pleasure was all mine, Liam, she replied, her voice soft. It was wonderful to share this with you. He paused at the top of the staircase, turning to look at her, the soft glow of the rising sun just beginning to touch his face, illuminating the warmth in his eyes. I think, he said, a quiet sincerity in his tone, I'm going to love living here and seeing the stars with you. Elara's heart fluttered. She watched him descend the stairs, then heard the soft click of her front door. She stayed in the observatory for a long time, watching the stars fade into the encroaching dawn, a profound sense of peace and a whisper of something new, something hopeful, blooming within her. The universe, vast and mysterious, suddenly felt a little less lonely, a little more full of promise. And she knew with a certainty that settled deep in her bones that this was just the beginning of their journey under the starlight. She stayed in the observatory for a long time, watching the stars fade into the encroaching dawn, a profound sense of peace and a whisper of something new, something hopeful, blooming within her. The universe, vast and mysterious, suddenly felt a little less lonely, a little more full of promise. And she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that this was just the beginning of their journey under the starlight. The first rays of sunlight painted the eastern sky in hues of rose and gold by the time Amelia finally descended from the observatory. Her steps were lighter than usual, a subtle spring in her gait that hadn't been there before. The house, usually a bastion of quiet solitude, felt different now, imbued with a lingering warmth, a faint echo of laughter and whispered observations. She made herself a cup of chamomile tea, a ritual for calming her mind after a night of intense focus. But today, her mind wasn't racing with celestial data. Instead, it replayed moments from the night, the shared breath as they gazed through the telescope, the accidental brush of his hand as he pointed to Orion, the comforting weight of his presence beside her. She sat by the kitchen window, the mug warming her hands, and watched the world outside slowly awaken. The birds began their morning chorus, a cheerful symphony that seemed to mirror the song in her own heart. A smile, soft and unbidden, touched her lips. It wasn't just the memory of Liam's company that brightened her morning. It was the realization that she had shared a piece of her carefully guarded world, and it hadn't diminished it. Instead, it had expanded, becoming richer, more vibrant. For years, her observatory had been a sanctuary, a place of profound personal connection to the cosmos. Last night, it had become something more. A space where two souls, drawn by the same distant lights, had found an unexpected closeness. The quiet hum of her life, once a comfort, now felt like an invitation, waiting to be filled with new harmonies. Later that morning, as she tidied her desk, a small, almost imperceptible flutter started in her chest. She found herself glancing at her phone more often than usual, a new habit that felt both thrilling and slightly absurd for someone who usually regarded her phone as a mere tool. Should she text him? What would she say? A simple thank you felt too formal, too distant for the intimacy they had shared. Before she could overthink it, her phone buzzed. Her breath caught. It was Liam. "Morning, Amelia. I hope you got some rest. Last night was truly magical. Thank you for sharing your universe with me." A genuine, unself-conscious smile spread across her face. He understood. He truly understood. She typed her reply, carefully choosing her words, wanting to convey the depth of her appreciation without sounding overly effusive. "Good morning, Liam. I slept remarkably well, thank you. And it was my pleasure. The magic, I think, was shared. I certainly enjoyed your company." His response was almost immediate. "I'm glad to hear it. And I wholeheartedly agree. Would you be open to sharing a less cosmic, but equally delightful cup of coffee sometime soon? Perhaps somewhere with slightly less impressive telescopic equipment?" Amelia laughed aloud, a light, melodious sound that echoed softly in the quiet kitchen. "You think I could be persuaded? I know a charming little coffee shop in town." "Perfect. How about tomorrow afternoon? Say 2 o'clock. "O'clock. Sounds wonderful." The exchange was brief, simple, yet it left her with a profound sense of anticipation. It wasn't just a coffee date, it was a bridge from her solitary world into a shared one. For the rest of the day, a gentle hum of excitement resonated within her. She found herself humming along to a classical piece she rarely paid much attention to, and even her usually precise research notes seemed to carry a lighter tone. The next day, as 2 o'clock approached, Amelia felt a flutter of nerves she hadn't experienced in years. Choosing an outfit, usually a perfunctory task, became a careful consideration. She settled on a soft moss-green linen dress that complemented her eyes and felt comfortable, yet elegant. She styled her hair simply, letting a few wisps frame her face, and added a touch of subtle lip gloss. Looking in the mirror, She saw not just herself, but a slightly brighter, more open version of Amelia, one ready for something new. The coffee shop, the daily grind, was a cozy spot with mismatched furniture and the comforting aroma of roasted beans. Liam was already there, sitting by a window, a book open on the table beside him. He looked up as she entered, his eyes lighting up with that same warm, genuine smile that had disarmed her in the observatory. He stood, pulling out the chair opposite him. "Amelia," he greeted, his voice a soft rumble. "You look lovely." "Liam," she replied, feeling a blush creep up her neck. "Thank you, you too." He was wearing a casual button-down shirt that made his shoulders look broader, and his hair, she noticed, had a slight wave to it. He looked just as kind, just as approachable as he had under the starlight, but now in the daylight, there was an added vibrancy to him. They ordered lattes, and the conversation flowed with an ease that surprised her. It wasn't about stars or constellations this time, but about their lives beyond the night sky. Liam spoke of his work as an architectural designer, his passion for sustainable buildings, and his love for hiking in the nearby national park. He told her about his close-knit family, his 2 younger sisters, and their boisterous Sunday dinners. Amelia found herself opening up, sharing details about her research that she rarely discussed outside of academic circles. She spoke of the quiet satisfaction of discovery, the meticulous process of data analysis, and the profound beauty she found in the universe's mathematical precision. She even shared a little about her solitary nature, explaining how she'd always found more comfort in the company of galaxies than in crowded rooms. Liam listened intently, his gaze unwavering, never interrupting, only offering gentle nods of understanding. "I can appreciate that," he said softly, stirring his latte. "There's a certain kind of peace in creating your own space, your own world. My work, in a way, is about that too, designing spaces that feel like sanctuaries. But even the best sanctuary can benefit from a well-placed window, allowing new light in." He looked at her then, his eyes twinkling. "Or, in your case, a telescope, allowing the whole light in." Amelia smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "I suppose that's true. And your buildings, I imagine, are quite beautiful." "I try," he chuckled. "Perhaps I could show you some of my designs sometime? Or, if you're ever curious, take you on a tour of one of my completed projects." "I like that very much," she said, her heart doing a little flip. The invitation wasn't just for a tour, it was an invitation into his world, just as she had invited him into hers. They talked for nearly 2 hours, discovering shared loves for classic literature, old jazz music, and the simple joy of a perfectly brewed cup of tea. There was a comfortable rhythm to their conversation, a sense that they were 2 halves of a story, finally finding their way to each other. When it was time to leave, Liam walked her to her car, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows behind them. As she unlocked her door, he placed a gentle hand on her arm, his touch warm and reassuring. "Amelia," he said, his voice a low murmur. "I truly enjoyed this, more than I can say." "Me too, Liam," she replied, looking up at him, her gaze lingering on his kind eyes. "Thank you." He squeezed her arm lightly, then released her. "I'll call you." She drove home feeling buoyant, a lightness in her chest that settled into a deep contentment. The daily grind, for all its lack of celestial grandeur, had felt just as magical as her observatory. Over the next few weeks, their connection deepened with each shared moment. Their calls became a regular occurrence, easy conversations that often stretched late into the evening, filled with laughter and thoughtful silences. They went on more dates. A leisurely walk through the botanical gardens where Liam pointed out the architectural marvels of nature. And Amelia found herself noticing the intricate patterns of leaves with new appreciation. They spent an afternoon browsing the dusty shelves of a second-hand bookstore, exchanging recommendations and discovering a mutual fondness for obscure science fiction novels. One crisp autumn evening, Liam suggested they cook dinner together at her place. Amelia, initially hesitant to invite him into her home beyond the observatory, found herself agreeing with surprising enthusiasm. She spent the afternoon preparing, not just ingredients, but her usually pristine living space, adding a vase of fresh wildflowers, choosing a playlist of soft jazz. When he arrived, bearing a bottle of a rich red wine and a bouquet of sunflowers, the kitchen filled with a comfortable warmth. They moved around each other with a natural choreography, chopping vegetables, stirring sauces, the clinking of pots and pans punctuated by easy conversation and shared jokes. Liam, she discovered, was an excellent cook, his movements precise and confident. He taught her a trick for dicing onions that made her laugh, and she, in turn, shared a family recipe for her grandmother's apple crisp tatte. As they ate, candlelight flickering between them, Amelia felt a profound sense of belonging she hadn't realized she was missing. It wasn't just the delicious food or the delightful company. It was the quiet intimacy of creating something together, sharing a meal in her own space. After dinner, they settled on the sofa, listening to music, talking softly about their day, his hand finding hers, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles. It was a simple, tender gesture, but it sent a cascade of warmth through her. "Amelia," he murmured, turning to face her fully, his eyes earnest in the dim light. "I feel so incredibly comfortable with you." She met his gaze, her heart open and vulnerable. "Me too, Liam. More than I've ever felt with anyone." He leaned closer then, his eyes searching hers, asking for unspoken permission. She gave it freely, leaning in herself. His lips, soft and warm, met hers in a gentle, lingering kiss that tasted of wine and apples, and a promise of untold tenderness. It was a slow, unhurried kiss, full of respect and burgeoning affection, a silent declaration of the growing feelings between them. When they finally pulled apart, it was with a sigh of contentment, a shared smile that spoke volumes. As the weeks turned into months, their lives began to intertwine seamlessly. Liam often spent evenings at her house, sometimes helping her with minor technical adjustments in the observatory, sometimes simply sitting beside her, reading, while she worked. He treated her quiet world with reverence, understanding her need for solitude, but always making his presence a comforting addition rather than an intrusion. Amelia, in turn, began to visit his place more often. His apartment, unlike her secluded house, was in a vibrant part of town, filled with light and art and books. He had a small balcony overflowing with herbs and flowers, and a well-loved armchair by a window where he often sketched. She loved watching him work, seeing the focused intensity in his eyes as he brought structures to life on paper. She even grew fond of his mischievous ginger cat, Comet, who initially regarded her with suspicion but eventually decided her lap was a suitable napping spot. One evening, they were back in her observatory, a clear, crisp night unfolding above them. Liam was helping her calibrate a new camera lens, his hands careful and precise. The familiar scent of ozone from the equipment mingled with his subtle cologne, a comforting blend. "You know," Liam said, his voice low, "I used to think my passion for architecture was about building something solid, something tangible. But being here with you, looking at the stars, I realize it's also about creating spaces for wonder, for dreams." He paused, looking out at the glittering expanse. "You've shown me a whole new kind of space, Amelia." She turned from the eyepiece, her heart swelling with emotion. "And you, Liam, you've shown me that even the most solitary space can be made brighter with a shared perspective." She reached out, her hand finding his, her fingers intertwining. His grip was warm and firm. They stood there for a long time, not speaking, just holding hands, gazing at the cosmos. The vastness above them no longer felt overwhelming, but rather like a boundless canvas for their unfolding story. Amelia felt a certainty settle deep within her, a quiet conviction that this shared journey, under the watchful eyes of a million stars, was just beginning, and that every moment with Liam was a precious new discovery, illuminating her world in ways she had never imagined. The cold mountain air eventually began to prickle Amelia's skin, a gentle reminder of the world beyond their shared celestial bubble. Liam seemed to sense it too, his thumb tracing a slow, comforting circle on the back of her hand. "Perhaps we should head inside," he murmured, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her, a stark contrast to the vast silence of the night. "You're starting to shiver." Amelia hadn't even noticed the chill, so engrossed was she in the moment, but now that he mentioned it, a subtle tremor ran through her. She nodded, a small involuntary sigh escaping her lips. It was difficult to break away from the mesmerizing spectacle above, and even more difficult to break away from the quiet intimacy that had settled between them. As they slowly turned and began the walk back towards the observatory's living quarters, their hands remained clasped, a silent anchor in the darkness. The path, illuminated by soft, strategically placed lights, seemed to guide them with a gentle hand. Amelia glanced at Liam, his profile etched against the faint glow of the distant horizon. He looked content. A peaceful stillness radiated from him, mirroring the tranquility she felt within herself. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely a whisper, the words feeling utterly inadequate to express the depth of her gratitude for this unexpected, magical evening. He squeezed her hand lightly. "For what, Amelia? For sharing the universe?" A soft chuckle escaped him. "It's my greatest pleasure." "For everything," she clarified, looking up at him. "For showing me something truly extraordinary. For making me feel seen. And for being you." A faint flush touched Liam's cheeks, visible even in the dim light. He didn't reply immediately, but his grip tightened, a silent acknowledgement of her words. The air around them crackled with an unspoken understanding, a delicate energy that felt both new and profoundly familiar. When they reached the main building, Liam led her not to her room, but to a small, cozy common area she hadn't fully explored yet. It featured a rustic stone fireplace, now radiating a welcoming warmth, and a couple of plush armchairs. A small kitchenette was tucked into one corner. "Tea," he offered, already moving towards the kettle. "Or hot chocolate? It's a specialty up here." Amelia smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the fire. "Hot chocolate sounds wonderful, thank you." She settled into one of the armchairs, pulling her knees up to her chest, watching Liam move with an easy grace. He seemed completely at home here, his presence filling the quiet space with a comforting calm. As he prepared their drinks, the soft clinking of mugs and spoons was the only sound, a gentle counterpoint to the crackling fire. He returned a few minutes later, bearing 2 steaming mugs. The rich, sweet scent of chocolate wafted through the air. He handed one to her, their fingers brushing, sending a jolt through her that was becoming increasingly familiar. He took the armchair opposite her, stretching his long legs out towards the fire. "So," Liam began, taking a sip of his drink, his eyes twinkling over the rim of the mug. "You mentioned you work in a bookstore. That sounds idyllic. What kind of books?" Amelia felt a wave of comfort wash over her as she talked about her beloved pages and prose. A quaint independent bookstore nestled in a quiet corner of her city. She described the scent of old paper and dust motes dancing in sunbeams, the worn leather armchairs, the lively book club discussions. She spoke of her love for classic literature, for stories that transported her, for the quiet satisfaction of matching a reader with their perfect next escape. "It's not as glamorous as chasing nebulae," she admitted with a self-deprecating laugh. "But it's my universe, a universe of words." Liam listened intently, a thoughtful expression on his face. "A universe of words," he repeated slowly. "I like that. It's a different kind of discovery, isn't it? Unearthing stories, connecting people to narratives that shape their understanding of the world, just as we try to connect humanity to the grand narrative of the cosmos." His ability to draw parallels, to find meaning in different passions, captivated her. "Exactly," she said, feeling a surge of genuine connection. "And you, Liam? What drew you to the stars? Was it a childhood dream or a sudden revelation?" He leaned back, gazing into the flames for a moment before answering. "Both, I suppose. I was always the kid with his nose in astronomy books, building crude telescopes out of cardboard tubes, but it really solidified for me when I was a teenager. I had a particularly difficult year, felt a bit lost, frankly." He paused, a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher in his eyes. "And then one night my grandfather, who wasn't really a man of many words, took me out to an open field, far from the city lights." He pointed to the Milky Way, just a faint band of light then, and he said, "Look, Liam, no matter how small you feel or how confused, remember there's always something bigger, something infinite. And you're a part of it all." It was humbling and incredibly grounding. Amelia's heart swelled. She could picture a younger Liam, searching for answers in the night sky. "That's a beautiful story," she whispered. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man." "He was," Liam agreed, a soft smile touching his lips. "He taught me to look up, and I've been looking up ever since." He took another sip of his hot chocolate. "It's funny, isn't it? How we both find comfort and meaning in different kinds of vastness. You in the boundless expanse of human imagination, me in the limitless reach of space. They talked for what felt like hours, the fire slowly dying down, the mugs growing cold in their hands. They spoke of their favorite constellations, Amelia's favorite literary characters, the subtle differences between city life and mountain solitude, their most cherished memories, their quietest fears. Liam shared his dreams of discovering a new exoplanet, a world teeming with potential for life. Amelia confessed her secret desire to one day write her own story, a sweeping romance perhaps, set in a world where magic and reality intertwined. With each shared word, each quiet laugh, each understanding nod, the invisible threads binding them grew stronger, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences and burgeoning affection. Amelia found herself marveling at how easily their conversations flowed, how effortlessly she felt she could be herself with him. It was a rare and precious gift. Finally, a yawn escaped her, a gentle reminder that even magical evenings had to yield to the necessities of sleep. Liam rose, collecting their empty mugs. "It's getting late," he said, his voice softer now, tinged with a reluctant wistfulness. "You must be tired." "I am," Amelia admitted, feeling a pleasant exhaustion settle over her. "But I wouldn't have traded a minute of it." He walked her to her door, the short hallway quiet and still. Standing there under the soft glow of a sconce, the unspoken hung heavy in the air between them. Her gaze met his, and in his eyes she saw a warmth, a tenderness that made her breath catch. "Good night, Amelia," he said, his voice a low caress. "Good night, Liam," she replied, her own voice a little shaky. He hesitated for a moment, then, very gently, he reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered for a second, a light, almost imperceptible touch that sent a shiver of delight through her. Then, with a small, knowing smile, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her hand instinctively touching the spot where he had touched her, her heart thrumming with a newfound happiness. Sleep came easily that night, filled with dreams of swirling galaxies and whispered words, of strong hands and warm smiles. One day. The next morning, Amelia woke feeling refreshed and invigorated, a sense of lightness in her step. The sun streamed through her window, painting the room in hues of soft gold. She dressed quickly, eager to greet the day. She found Liam in the small dining area, already at a table, poring over charts and graphs spread out before him. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. He looked up as she entered, his face lighting up with a genuine smile that made her own heart quicken. "Good morning, sleepwalker," he teased gently. "Did you finally manage to tear yourself away from the stellar realms?" Amelia chuckled, feeling completely at ease. "Good morning. And yes, eventually, though my dreams were rather spectacular, I must admit." He gestured to the coffee pot. "Help yourself. And there are some pastries. I managed to convince our resident chef, Mrs. Henderson, to bake some extras." As Amelia poured herself coffee and selected a flaky croissant, she glanced at the papers Liam was studying. "Looks serious," she commented. "Just some preliminary data from last night's observations," he explained, pushing a few papers aside to make room for her. "Confirming some stellar classifications, checking for anomalies." She sat opposite him, taking a bite of her croissant. "Cosmic detective work," she mused. "I like that. So, what's on the agenda for today, detective?" Liam leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Well, after I finish this, I usually spend the day calibrating equipment, running simulations, preparing for the next night. But I was wondering if you'd like a proper tour of the observatory in daylight. See where all the magic happens when the stars are out." "I'd love that," Amelia said, her eyes brightening. The idea of spending more time with him, exploring his world, filled her with a quiet delight. The tour was fascinating. Liam led her through the massive dome, explaining the intricate mechanics of the telescope, the delicate mirrors, the complex computer systems that controlled every movement. He spoke with such passion and clarity, his eyes alight with enthusiasm, that even the most technical explanations became engaging. Amelia found herself completely absorbed, asking questions, marveling at the ingenuity and dedication required for such work. She saw the control room, a labyrinth of screens and blinking lights, where astronomers monitored the telescope's operations. She learned about spectrographs and adaptive optics, about the constant battle against light pollution and atmospheric distortion. It was a world so different from her own, yet she felt a strange sense of belonging, simply by being there with him. As they walked between buildings, Liam pointed out different types of flora and fauna unique to the mountain environment. He showed her a small hidden trail that wound through a grove of ancient pine trees, leading to a breathtaking vista of the valley below. "This is my thinking spot," he confessed, gesturing to a smooth, sun-warmed rock. "When the numbers get too overwhelming, or a problem seems unsolvable, I come here. It usually puts things into perspective." Amelia sat beside him on the rock, gazing out at the sweeping panorama. The world stretched out beneath them, a patchwork of green forests and distant hazy towns. The silence here was profound, broken only by the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant cry of a hawk. "It's beautiful, Liam," she said softly. "It makes everything else seem small." "That's the idea," he murmured, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "It reminds you that your worries, your anxieties, even your biggest triumphs, are just a tiny blip in the grand scheme, but it also reminds you that even a tiny blip can be incredibly significant." He turned his head to look at her, a warm, searching look in his eyes. Like a single star, or a single story, or a single connection. Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, Amelia felt the unspoken words hanging in the air. Use. The connection between them, the tiny blip that was their burgeoning relationship, felt incredibly significant indeed. They spent the rest of the afternoon working side by side in the observatory's small library, a cozy room filled with shelves of scientific journals and star charts. Liam was compiling data, and Amelia, with her meticulous organizational skills from the bookstore, offered to help him cross-reference some older observational logs. It was a surprisingly pleasant task, the quiet rhythm of turning pages, and the soft scratching of pens creating a comforting ambience. Amelia learned about the history of the observatory, the dedicated individuals who had worked there over the decades, their triumphs and their frustrations. She saw a side of Liam that was focused and dedicated, yet still punctuated by moments of gentle humor and insightful commentary. He'd occasionally point out a fascinating detail, a particularly intriguing star system, or a historical anecdote that brought the dry data to life. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, they paused their work. "Dinner soon," Liam announced, stretching. "And then, if you're up for it, another night under the lens." Amelia smiled, feeling a familiar thrill at the prospect. "I'm always up for it." Over a simple but delicious dinner prepared by Mrs. Henderson, they chatted about lighter things, their favorite foods, funny anecdotes from their pasts. Amelia found herself opening up to Liam in ways she hadn't with anyone else in a long time. She told him about her slightly eccentric aunt who believed in fairies, and her childhood dream of having a pet dragon. Liam shared stories of his clumsy attempts at cooking as a student, and a particularly memorable stargazing trip where a meteor shower had turned into an unexpected camping adventure. The ease between them was palpable, a comfortable silence often settling when words weren't needed, filled instead with shared glances and quiet smiles. Later that night, back in the dome, the air was charged with a different kind of excitement. Liam was guiding the telescope towards a distant galaxy, an ancient spiral of stars billions of light years away. Amelia watched him, mesmerized by his focused intensity, his hands moving with practiced precision over the controls. "There," he said, finally stepping back from the eyepiece. "Take a look, it's a beauty." Amelia peered into the lens and there it was, a faint, luminous swirl of light, a cosmic island teeming with untold billions of stars. It was breathtaking, humbling, and utterly magnificent. "It's incredible, Liam," she breathed, her voice filled with awe. "It's like looking back in time." "It is," he agreed, standing close beside her, his arm brushing hers. "The light from that galaxy has traveled for so long to reach us. It's a snapshot of the universe as it was, not as it is now." They spent a long time observing, Liam pointing out different features, explaining the processes of star formation and galactic evolution. Amelia felt a profound sense of wonder, not just at the cosmos but at the man beside her, who so effortlessly unlocked its secrets for her. As the night wore on, a comfortable routine settled between them. Liam would make adjustments, record data, and then invite Amelia to observe. They'd discuss what they saw, speculate on what lay beyond the visible spectrum, and occasionally drift into more personal conversations, their voices hushed in the vast quiet of the dome. At one point, as Liam was making a particularly complex adjustment, he turned to her, a faint frown on his brow. "My research assistant usually helps me with these calibrations. He's on leave this week, and it's a bit more tedious with just one pair of hands." "Can I help?" Amelia offered immediately. "I mean, I'm probably useless with all the technical stuff, but if you need an extra pair of eyes, or someone to read out numbers, I'm surprisingly good at following instructions." Liam's frown lifted, replaced by a grateful smile. "That would actually be incredibly helpful, Amelia. Are you sure? It's not exactly glamorous." "I'm sure," she insisted. "Consider it my contribution to cosmic detective work." He gave her a quick, warm smile, and then began instructing her. He showed her which dials to turn, which readings to call out from the computer screen, how to check for specific light patterns. Amelia, with her keen eye for detail and her quick grasp of patterns, quickly picked up the tasks. She found a strange satisfaction in the rhythmic process, in the small, precise actions that contributed to a larger, complex goal. Working together, side by side, in the quiet hum of the observatory, felt incredibly natural. Their movements became synchronized, their communication a seamless flow of instructions and confirmations. There were moments when their hands brushed as they reached for a control, or their shoulders accidentally bumped, sending a pleasant jolt through Amelia. Each time, a warmth spread through her, a quiet affirmation of their growing bond. As the first hint of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, Liam finally declared the calibration complete. He turned to her, a look of genuine gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you, Amelia," he said, his voice soft with tiredness yet brimming with sincerity. "That would have taken me hours longer on my own. You're natural." Amelia felt a blush creep up her neck, pleased by his praise. "I enjoyed it," she admitted. "It's different from cataloging first editions." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "A bit, yes, but you approach it with the same quiet dedication. It's admirable." They stood there for a moment, bathed in the gentle, ethereal light of the pre-dawn sky filtering through the dome's opening. The air was cool, fresh, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Amelia felt a profound sense of contentment, a deep peace settling in her heart. She realized with a quiet certainty that she didn't want this experience, this connection, to end. Her time at the observatory was drawing to a close. Her research on historical astronomical texts was nearing completion, and soon she would have to return to her bookstore, to her familiar life. The thought brought with it a pang of bittersweet melancholy. Liam seemed to sense her mood shift. "You have been a wonderful addition to the observatory, Amelia," he said, his voice gentle. "It's been brighter since you arrived." Amelia met his gaze, her heart aching with a tenderness she hadn't expected. "And you, Liam," she replied, her voice a little shaky. "You've opened my eyes to a whole new universe, not just the stars but everything." He stepped a little closer, his hand reaching out, not quite touching her, but hovering near her arm. "I don't want you to leave, Amelia," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper, the raw honesty in his tone making her breath catch. "Not yet." Her heart hammered against her ribs. She looked into his eyes, seeing her own unspoken desires reflected there. The vastness of the cosmos suddenly felt very small compared to the immense swirling emotions within her. She knew with a certainty that settled deep in her bones that this was just the beginning. Amelia's gaze lingered on his, a silent conversation passing between them that transcended words. The cool night air seemed to hum with unspoken possibilities. She reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against his hand, the small gesture a silent affirmation of her own desire to stay. A spark, gentle yet insistent, ignited between them. Leo's hand closed over hers, warm and firm, a comforting anchor in the vastness of the night. He pulled her a fraction closer, their shoulders almost touching. "Come inside," he murmured, his voice still low, but now laced with a quiet determination. "It's getting cold and I'd like to keep talking." She nodded, a soft smile gracing her lips. The observatory, her initial purpose for being here, faded into the background, replaced by the magnetic pull of this man, and the unexpected journey they were embarking on. Inside his rustic cabin, a fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across the wooden walls. The scent of pine and wood smoke filled the air, a natural perfume that was both grounding and enchanting. Leo gestured towards a worn, comfortable-looking armchair draped with a thick wool blanket. Amelia settled into it, feeling an immediate sense of ease, as if she were meant to be there. He sat on the rug before the fire, leaning back against the armchair, his gaze still fixed on her. He offered her a mug of herbal tea, fragrant with mint and something subtly floral. "It's from my garden," he explained, a hint of pride in his tone. They talked for hours as the night slowly melted into dawn. They spoke of the stars, of course, but also of the earth beneath them. Leo shared stories of the forest, of the animals he'd observed, of the quiet wisdom he found in the rhythm of the seasons. Amelia, in turn, spoke of the universe's grand design, of the distant galaxies and the mysteries they held, of her dreams of discovering new worlds. They found common ground in their awe of the unknown, their respect for intricate beauty, and their shared desire to understand the world around them, whether it was infinitely large or exquisitely small. As the first sliver of orange light painted the horizon, Leo led her outside again, to a small wooden bench overlooking the valley. The stars were fading, making way for the magnificent spectacle of sunrise. The world began to awaken around them, bird song filling the crisp air, dew glittering on every blade of grass. "It's beautiful," Amelia whispered, tears pricking her eyes at the sheer majesty of it all. It wasn't just the sunrise, it was the sunrise shared with him, feeling the warmth of his presence beside her, the quiet understanding that had blossomed between them in the dark. He didn't say anything, just reached for her hand and intertwined their fingers, squeezing gently. In that moment, she understood that Leo didn't just observe nature, he was a part of it, deeply rooted and profoundly connected. And somehow, being with him, she felt a similar connection, not just to him, but to the very fabric of existence. The next few days unfolded like a dream she never wanted to end. Amelia extended her stay at the observatory, making excuses to her colleagues about a particularly challenging data set. Her real research, however, was happening right here, with Leo. They hiked through sun-dappled forests, silent for long stretches, simply enjoying each other's company and the sounds of nature. They cooked simple, delicious meals together in his small kitchen, laughing as they experimented with herbs from his garden. He taught her the names of wildflowers and the calls of different birds. She taught him about constellations he hadn't noticed, pointing out nebulae with her laser pointer, translating the scientific jargon into poetic wonder. Every night, they would return to the observatory, not just for her work, but for their shared ritual. They'd set up the telescope, or sometimes just lie on a blanket, hands clasped, watching the celestial ballet unfold above them. Each night, their conversations delved a little deeper, peeling back layers of their pasts, their hopes, their vulnerabilities. Amelia learned that Leo had once been a city dweller, a disillusioned architect who had traded concrete for forest, seeking a quieter, more authentic life. He'd found solace and purpose in tending his land, in the simple rhythm of growing food and observing the natural world. He'd built the cabin with his own hands, a testament to his desire for self-sufficiency and harmony with his surroundings. His solitude wasn't a punishment, but a conscious choice, one that had brought him peace. Yet, there had always been a quiet longing, a space he hadn't known could be filled until she arrived. "I never thought I'd meet anyone who understood both my worlds," he confessed one evening as they sat by the fire, the glow illuminating the thoughtful lines on his face. "The intricate patterns of a leaf and the infinite sprawl of the cosmos. Most people see them as separate. You see the connection." Amelia smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Because they are connected, Leo. The same laws of physics govern the dance of atoms in a flower and the spin of a galaxy. It's all one magnificent, interconnected tapestry." She paused, then added softly, "And I never thought I'd meet anyone who made me feel like I belonged in both, either." A comfortable silence settled between them, the warmth of the fire and their proximity a balm to their souls. But beneath the surface, a quiet anxiety began to stir for Amelia. Her grant was finite. Her return date loomed. The world of deadlines and research papers felt a million miles away, yet it was inexorably drawing closer. One morning, After a breakfast of fresh berries and homemade sourdough bread, Amelia found the courage to voice her apprehension. "Leo," she began, her voice a little shaky. "My time here, it's almost up. I have to go back to the university, to my life in the city." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. The usual sparkle in his eyes seemed dimmed. "I know," he said quietly, his gaze dropping to his hands, clasped loosely in his lap. I've been trying not to think about it." "I don't want to go," she admitted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "Not if it means leaving you." The raw honesty of her confession hung in the air, vulnerable and exposed. He lifted his head then, his eyes searching hers, a flicker of hope beginning to return. "And I don't want you to leave, Amelia," he echoed his earlier confession, but this time with a deeper resonance, a heavier weight of emotion. I've never felt this way before. This quiet peace, this profound joy, this sense of finally finding my missing piece." He reached across the small table, taking both her hands in his. What if you didn't have to leave?" Amelia's heart leaped. "What do you mean?" "The observatory," he began, a thoughtful furrow in his brow. "It's a unique facility. You could propose extending your research or even a permanent position here. The university has other branches, satellite campuses. You're a brilliant astronomer, Amelia. They need people like you." He paused, then added, a shy smile gracing his lips, "And if they don't see that, then maybe." She considered his words, her mind racing. The thought of leaving this place, leaving him, had become an unbearable ache. But her career was important, her passion for the stars unwavering. Could she truly combine them here? It would be a big change, she mused, more to herself than to him. "Leaving my old life behind." "Life is about evolution, isn't it?" he said, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "Just like the stars, constantly forming, changing, becoming something new. Sometimes the most beautiful things emerge from the biggest shifts." He stood up, pulling her gently to her feet. "Come with me." He led her out of the cabin, past his thriving vegetable garden, and into a small clearing nestled deeper in the woods. There, bathed in dappled sunlight, stood a sturdy, half-finished wooden structure. It was clearly the beginning of another cabin, perhaps a guest house or a workshop. "I started building this a few months ago," he explained, gesturing with a sweep of his hand. "Just because I felt a need for expansion, for something more, but I didn't know what. Now?" He turned to her, his gaze full of tenderness and a profound proposal. "Now I know. This could be yours, Amelia, or ours. We could finish it together. You could have your own space here, your own study, your own little observatory in the backyard if you wanted. We could build a life here, a life where you're connected to the stars and to the earth and to me." Amelia stared at the unfinished structure, then back at Leo, her heart overflowing. It wasn't just a cabin, it was a promise, a vision of a shared future built on mutual dreams and quiet love. He wasn't asking her to abandon her passion, but to integrate it into a new, richer existence. He was offering her a home, not just a place, but a person. Tears welled in her eyes, but these were tears of joy, of profound gratitude. She threw her arms around him, burying her face in his shoulder. "Yes, Leo," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He held her close, his embrace strong and protective, a silent vow exchanged between them under the canopy of ancient trees. The scent of pine and his unique earthy fragrance filled her senses, grounding her in the present, in this beautiful, unexpected reality. Over the next few months, Amelia meticulously planned her transition. Her colleagues, initially surprised, soon understood the depth of her passion for the dark sky site and her new, equally profound connection to Leo. She secured a research fellowship, allowing her to split her time between occasional visits to the main university campus and her new home at the observatory. She even started teaching online astronomy courses, sharing her love for the cosmos with a wider audience, all from the tranquility of the mountains. Together, she and Leo finished the second cabin, transforming it into a cozy home and a dedicated study for Amelia, complete with a small custom-built dome for her personal telescope. They planted a pollinator garden around it, a vibrant tapestry of wildflowers that hummed with life, a testament to their combined love for both the micro and macro worlds. Their days settled into a rhythm of shared purpose and quiet joy. Mornings were spent working on their respective passions, Amelia delving into astronomical data, Leo tending his land and his craft. Afternoons often involved long walks, cooking together, or simply reading side by the fire. And every evening, without fail, they would meet under the vast, star-dusted canvas, their hands intertwined, their hearts full. One crisp autumn night, as a meteor shower painted streaks across the velvet sky, Leo led Amelia to their favorite stargazing spot. He knelt before her, not with a diamond ring, but with a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside, nestled on a bed of dried moss, was a polished fragment of a meteorite, its dark pitted surface shimmering with tiny flecks of metal, a literal piece of the cosmos. "Amelia," he began, his voice imbued with all the love and certainty that had grown between them. "You came into my life like a shooting star, bright, unexpected, and utterly breathtaking. You showed me that even in solitude, there can be a yearning for connection, and that the greatest discoveries aren't always found through a lens, but in the heart." He took her hand, placing the meteorite in her palm. "Will you do me the honor of sharing this incredible journey, this life under the stars, and on this earth, with me forever?" Amelia's eyes welled up again, but this time the tears flowed freely, each one a testament to the profound happiness she felt. The meteorite was the perfect symbol, a piece of the universe, a connection to her life's passion, given to her by the man who had become her universe. "Yes, Leo," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, my love, always and forever." He stood, pulling her into a warm embrace, and they swayed gently under the silent gaze of the stars. The air was cool, but their hearts were alight, radiating a warmth that could rival the sun. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears and boundless love, seeing not just the man she adored, but the infinite possibilities that lay before them. The universe, once a distant object of study, had become their home. And with Leo by her side, every single star, every leaf on every tree, every beat of her heart, sang a symphony of love. This wasn't just the beginning anymore. It was forever. And it was more beautiful than any galaxy she could have ever imagined. She closed her eyes, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling utterly and completely at peace, wrapped in the warmth of his love, ready to drift into the most wonderful sleep of her life.